You're standing outside after a strange warm rain and the air feels wrong. Not dangerous exactly. Just unfamiliar, like the season has misremembered itself. You check the forecast, then close it. There is nothing to do with the information, so the worry sits in your body, unemployed. That may be the most psychologically revealing part of climate anxiety. It often isn't fear without reason. It's fear without an assignment. Anxiety usually points toward action. Check the lock, study for the exam, call the doctor. But climate threat is vast, slow, collective. So the nervous system keeps asking for a lever, a way to matter. And when none appears, distress can harden into helplessness. In a 2024 survey summarized by the APA, 15,793 U.S. young people were asked about climate change. 85% were at least moderately worried. More than half of that sample, 57.9%, said they were very or extremely worried. This was not a fringe emotional experience. In the same survey, 42.8% said climate change affected their mental health, and 38.3% said climate feelings disrupted daily life. Those numbers matter because they complicate a lazy story. Young people are not simply catastrophizing. Many are responding to visible instability. They have watched smoke turn skies orange, floods redraw neighborhoods, heat close schools, and adults argue over whether the problem is real. Leslie Davenport, quoted by the ABA Monitor, frames climate distress differently. It can mean someone is paying attention, caring, and responding empathically. Softly. That is a very different starting point from asking, how do we make this feeling go away? The question becomes, when does climate distress become damage, and when does it become a signal that wants direction? A 2025 paper in Child and Adolescent Psychiatry and Mental Health tested a brief intervention with 1,039 adolescents using a positive peer-style climate video. The video lasted just 110 seconds. After one exposure, adolescents reported more hopefulness and more agency about climate change. But their climate anxiety did not drop, and their behavioral intentions did not increase after that single viewing. That finding is easy to miss. The intervention improved hope and agency without soothing the anxiety itself. In other words, the goal may not always be less anxiety. Sometimes it may be anxiety with somewhere to go. Think about that in ordinary life. The anxious student often feels better not after reassurance, but after making a study plan. The new parent does not need someone saying everything is fine. They need sleep help and one practical next step. Climate distress follows a similar logic, except the next step cannot be carried by one nervous system alone. The authors of the adolescent video study cautioned that some climate anxiety can be natural and legitimate, not evidence of mental illness. That sentence matters. Pathologizing climate distress can accidentally tell young people their perception is the problem. But ignoring severe symptoms is not compassion either. Rumination, sleep disruption, panic, and withdrawal deserve care and support. One careful approach is to name the emotion precisely. Fear is not grief. Guilt is not betrayal. Anger is not despair. If you're supporting someone younger, consider asking, what part feels heaviest? The future, the unfairness, the loss, or the loneliness? A vague emotion is harder to metabolize. A named emotion can be shared, argued with, or turned toward action. Another 2025 study, this one in Ireland, tested a nature-based school intervention designed to build teenagers' climate capability. After the intervention, teenagers' climate capability increased, but so did eco-anxiety, and the two changes were significantly correlated. That is the finding that refuses to behave like a wellness slogan. Getting closer to the living world did not simply calm students down. It made them more capable and more anxious. Maybe that should not surprise us. Attention often hurts before it organizes. Knowing more can sharpen both sorrow and responsibility. The Irish researchers described climate capability as more than knowledge. It included confidence, skills, reflection, and a sense of possible action. Capability is not the same as comfort. Sometimes growing up morally means becoming less comfortably numb. For educators, research suggests pairing climate information with efficacy. Threat without agency may intensify paralysis, especially for already worried students. That does not mean false optimism. It means, on a scale, here is the problem, here is the collective work, here is your doorway. Agency is not the fantasy of solving everything. It is the experience of not being psychologically abandoned. This is why individual lifestyle advice can feel strangely thin. Use less plastic, buy differently, travel less. Those choices may matter, but when offered alone, they can shrink a planetary crisis into private moral bookkeeping. A more psychologically sturdy path may involve collective action, joining a local group, school project, civic effort, or mutual aid network. Collective action changes the emotional grammar. The sentence becomes not, I must fix this, but I am not acting alone. A 2025 BMC psychology study found eco-anxiety was multidimensional, meaning different kinds of climate distress related to different outcomes. Personal impact anxiety predicted more pro-environmental behavior, while affective and behavioral symptoms were more closely tied to lower life satisfaction. That distinction is important. Worry about consequences can mobilize, but intrusive distress that disrupts daily functioning can drain life of texture. So the useful question is not, is climate anxiety good or bad? It is, what form has it taken? If it pushes you toward values-based action, it may be carrying information. If it steals sleep and connection, consider support. And if climate distress is seriously interfering with your life, consider talking with a mental health professional familiar with eco-distress. Psychology has a habit of turning social pain into individual pathology. Climate anxiety tests that habit. Because the feeling lives in a person, but the threat lives in systems, infrastructure, policy, consumption, memory, and weather. With quiet intensity, a teenager can learn breathing exercises and still be right to ask why adults delayed. The APA Monitor noted that many young people describe not only worry but grief, anger, betrayal, and uncertainty about adulthood. Betrayal is especially revealing. It implies relationship. It says someone responsible knew enough and still failed to protect us. That feeling cannot be solved by telling someone to look on the bright side. It asks for repair. Validation comes before solutions. A simple, grounded response may help. Yes, this is heavy, and you should not carry it alone. Then the conversation can move toward scale. What is personal? What is communal? What belongs to institutions? What can be joined? Hope in this research is not a decorative feeling. It is closer to perceived possibility. The adolescent video trial increased hopefulness and agency, but one brief exposure did not change behavioral intentions. Motivation needed more than a spark. That makes sense. Watching an encouraging clip is different from having transportation, peers, mentorship, time, and an actual project. If you value this kind of careful psychology, a quiet like or subscription helps more people find the show. The deeper lesson is that emotion is not the opposite of action. Emotion is often action before it has found its shape. Grief can protect what remains. Anger can notice injustice. Fear can scan for danger. Guilt can search for responsibility. But each emotion needs containment. Without containment, grief floods, anger burns, fear loops. Guilt becomes self-punishment. Containment can look simple. A recurring group, a defined role, a bounded task, a trusted adult, a place to return. Research suggests agency grows when action is specific, social and realistic. Not heroic. Not performative. Just connected to consequence. That may be why nature-based learning can intensify anxiety while increasing capability. The world becomes more alive and therefore more vulnerable. Exhale. To love something clearly is to become available to its possible loss. But love also changes attention. A tree is no longer scenery. A flooded street is no longer background. For parents, teachers, and older adults, the task may be less reassurance and more accompaniment. Stay, listen, name, join, repeat. For young people, one approach is to ask, where does my distress meet other people already doing useful work? The assignment does not need to be grand. It needs to be real enough that the nervous system can feel contact. Climate anxiety may not be a malfunction. Sometimes it is a moral perception, searching for proportion, community, and a handle. The danger is not caring too much. The danger is being left alone with care that has nowhere to go. So the next time the warm rain feels wrong, notice the question beneath the worry. Not how do I stop feeling, but where can this feeling belong?